So I think for many of us, this is not the outcome that was expected. I know that I was hoping that maybe Melodee had been left with someone somewhere and that they would have been able to find her and then bring her back and put her safely with her father's family. To me, for someone to go to such calculated measures, it made the most sense to me that this had to have been something that was organised through a major crime syndicate. Who could imagine that a mother would go to such lengths to end the life of her own child? So I'm going to give you just a brief recap for anyone who's not familiar with the case, but I'm also going to play the news conference right through and then discuss it afterwards. And in the news conference, they give a really clear outline of the timeline. So some background information on Melodee. Melodee, her father died in a motorbike accident when she was just a baby. So she was raised by her mother. Now, from what I'm hearing, her mother has been on the CPS radar before, and I've heard that another child was removed from her custody. It has been recognised that Ashlee Buzzard has mental health issues. Well, now we know that's for sure. And my question is, how can a parent with such serious mental health issues be allowed to retain custody of this child? Because clearly there were some major mental health issues here. Only a psychopath could do what this woman has done. But clearly there's more to the picture here. So Melodee was homeschooled. Now, no one has really said why she was homeschooled, but I suspect it goes back to the mental health issues of the mother. And perhaps when it comes to the welfare of children, if a parent has a recognised mental health issue, then if they are not prepared for that child to attend regular school, that child should probably be removed from the home. Because the thing is, when you have a child that is living with a parent like that, a lot of the time these things get picked up when the children are at school. Schools are like a safety net when it comes to welfare of children. So if you have a person who has a known mental health issue, who is not sending her child to regular school, but is instead homeschooling them, then there needs to be, on a regular basis, some major checks and balances happening. This shouldn't be a situation where a parent can decide to homeschool their child and nobody sees the child or knows how the child is going, knows what life is like for that child. Did Melodee have anybody that she could turn to and say, things aren't good for me at home? Because it seems like this poor baby was probably a prisoner in her own home. Now, Melodee was enrolled for the new school year in September, but of course enrolled for homeschooling. So by the October the 14th, there had been no assignments submitted, essentially zero attendance for Melodee at school. Now, thankfully, this is a situation where policies were adhered to, and a school administrator made contact with Ashlee, and when Ashlee was unable to present Melodee or give any indication of Melodee's well-being or even where Melodee was, they immediately contacted the sheriff's office, who acted straight away. These guys were so quick, they were straight onto it. So by the following day, they were at Ashlee's house trying to figure out what was going on. And then with a follow-up, about a week later, we all find out that this woman headed off on a road trip on the 9th of October with Melodee, went from California all the way to Nebraska, and then doubled back and came back. Now, she took Melodee with her, but she had her in a wig. And somewhere along the way, she decided to change plates on the vehicle. It was a rental car. Change plates on the vehicle to make it harder to distinguish. But she didn't leave Melodee in Nebraska. She brought her halfway back with her. So the last sighting of her was around the Utah area. So Ashlee basically holed up in her home and refused to cooperate at all with detectives. And apparently she's still refusing to cooperate, which brings us to today. So it was actually early December that Melodee's remains were found by a couple of people just trying to take photos. Which brings us to today, where law enforcement have made that DNA match and Ashlee Buzzard has been arrested over the death of her daughter Melodee. Now I'm going to play the press conference for you in full with no interruptions from me, and then at the end of it I'm going to share my thoughts and just explain a few things, discuss a few things, just do what I normally do essentially. For those of you who've watched the press conference and may want to skip past it, I will put a timestamp on the screen at the beginning of the press conference so you know where to skip to in this video to listen to my commentary and my thoughts, etc. That said, I have added maps and details, etc. to the press conference so that there are things that are kind of explanatory as you go along if you still wanted to watch it. So with that said, let's jump in and look at this press conference.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Before we get underway, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping things with you all. I do want to let you know that there are going to be two things that are going to be new on these slides here. One is a map, and the other one is an updated timeline. We will be sending that out after the press conference, so you'll have that information available for you. I also want to go over our list of speakers and kind of tell you who they are. You're going to hear today from Santa Barbara County Sheriff Bill Brown. You'll hear from Sheriff's Lieutenant Chris Gottschall, who leads the Criminal Investigation Division. And then you'll also hear from Special Agent in Charge Patrick Grandy from the Los Angeles Field Office. Immediately following remarks, we will have a brief Q&A session. I do want to emphasize that this investigation remains ongoing, and so there are going to be some pieces of information that we don't have available for release just yet. We did do a very thorough job of trying to provide you with the most amount of information that we possibly could without compromising the investigation. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Bill Brown.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I am Santa Barbara County Sheriff Coroner Bill Brown, and today I am deeply saddened to report to you that the body of Melodee Buzzard, the 9-year-old child who went missing from the Lompoc area in October of this year, has been found in a rural area outside of Canesville in Wayne County, Utah. And that this morning at approximately 7:51 a.m., members of our Sheriff's Office and the FBI arrested her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, for her murder. Maternal filicide is rare and always difficult to comprehend. But this level of criminal activity is particularly shocking given the calculated, cold-blooded, and criminally sophisticated premeditation and heartlessness that went into planning it, and the ruthlessness that went into actually committing the crime. We have recovered a significant amount of evidence that clearly indicates that this heinous crime was committed by Ashlee Buzzard, Melodee's mother, and the very person upon who she relied upon and trusted the most in this world. From the moment this case was reported, our detectives pursued every lead with determination, with urgency, and with compassion. Our investigators and those of our allied agencies worked simultaneously on multiple fronts, some maintaining around-the-clock surveillance of Ashlee Buzzard, while others focused on the painstaking collection, analysis, and verification of physical, digital, and forensic evidence. That sustained effort was critical in bringing this case to where it stands today. Throughout this investigation, our detectives faced deliberate efforts to prevent them from finding Melodee and uncovering the truth. Despite those attempts, their focus never wavered. They remained disciplined, methodical, and relentless in their pursuit of the facts. Whenever obstacles were placed in their path, they overcame them. When cooperation was withheld, they relied on the evidence. Their commitment did not falter, and their determination did not fade. They followed the facts wherever they led, and that ultimately is what brought clarity and resolution to this case. Now I'm going to go over a timeline of the major developments in this case. Before I do that, though, and before I walk through it, I want to thank in particular, and we'll go into some further detail of our allied agencies that helped us, but two in particular that I want to recognize at the start of this, and that is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which has been with us throughout the investigation and has helped us not only in our regional area, but also out of state. And I particularly want to thank Sheriff Micah Gully and the members of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office in Wayne County, Utah, and every other agency that assisted us with their partnership, their professionalism, and for their commitment to this case. This level of coordination among jurisdictions was essential. It was superb, and we are grateful for the support provided at every stage. While this remains an active criminal case and certain details are still being investigated and cannot be disclosed at this time, I can share with you now a timeline outlining the major investigative milestones. October 14th, 2005, a school administrator reported Melodee's prolonged absence from school. Deputies responded to the family's residence in Lompoc, where her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, was contacted. Melodee was not at the residence, and Ashlee provided no verifiable explanation for Melodee's whereabouts. October 15th, 2025, detectives served a search warrant at the Buzzard residence in the 500 block of Mars Avenue in the Lompoc area, looking for evidence pertaining to Melodee's whereabouts. Subsequent to the search warrant, it was determined that Ashlee had recently rented a car, and video surveillance images were obtained showing Ashlee and Melodee at the rental car office, both of them wearing wigs in an apparent attempt to conceal their identity. These images were shared with the public on October the 22nd in an attempt to obtain additional information about their whereabouts. On October 24th, 2025, detectives shared an updated timeline and travel route with the public of Melodee's last known movements along a multi-state round-trip travel route that included California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, and Nebraska, with a return route including Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and then back to California. Detectives learned that along this trip, Ashlee switched the license plates on the vehicle she had rented to a New York plate, and found out that she would back her vehicle into gas stations in an apparent attempt to avoid detection by their surveillance cameras. Melodee was last seen on video surveillance with Ashlee on the Colorado side of the Colorado-Utah border on Thursday, October 9th, 2025. And detectives now believe that Melodee was murdered shortly after that stop. On October the 30th, sheriff's detectives, along with the FBI evidence response team, responded and served follow-up search warrants at the home of Ashlee Buzzard, as well as for a storage locker that she had rented and upon the car that she had recently rented as well. During the search of the Mars Avenue residence, an expended cartridge case was recovered. During the search of the vehicle, a live round of similar ammunition was located. Detectives submitted the expended cartridge case to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for inclusion in their national database called NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. December the 6th, 2025, members of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office in Utah responded to a call from a man and a woman who were taking photos just off the 3300 block of East State Route 24 in a remote part of Wayne County, Utah. This couple had discovered the decomposed body of a deceased person off of the side adjacent to West Caneville Road. On December 8th, 2025, a member of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office notified the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office of the discovery of the unidentified found body. Although immediate identification of the deceased person was not possible, it was apparent that the decedent was a female who had died from gunshot wounds to the head. December 17th, 2025, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives examination of cartridge cases found at the Utah crime scene resulted in a NIBIN hit, linking them to the single cartridge case that was found at the Buzzard residence. On December 22nd, yesterday, the FBI Crime Lab notified our agency that DNA analysis had determined that the remains found in Utah were a familial DNA match to Ashlee Buzzard. Today, December 23rd, 2025, members of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office and the FBI served search and arrest warrants at the Mars Avenue residence and arrested Ashlee Lynn Buzzard for the murder of Melodee Buzzard. Ashlee was taken into custody without incident, and she was booked at the Northern Branch Jail for first-degree murder, where she is currently being held without bail. While these developments represent important steps towards holding Ashlee Buzzard accountable for the murder of her daughter, they do not diminish the profound loss that we are acknowledging today. Because this case is now moving through the court system, there are limits on what additional detail we can share publicly at this time. At this point, I'm going to ask Lieutenant Chris Gottschall to recognize the personnel and agencies whose work in our region was instrumental in this investigation.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. This case required an extraordinary level of coordination and commitment amongst all agencies. I want to specifically recognize the detectives who tirelessly worked from the very beginning, including lead detective Joe Oliver, Detective Ruben Esparza, Detective Matt Maxwell, Detective Cliff Kabasig, Detective Thomas Brownlee, and Sergeant Jeff McDonald, along with numerous investigators, sheriff's deputies, professional staff, and support personnel who contributed countless hours to this effort. I'd also like to acknowledge our allied agencies whose cooperation and assistance were essential to advancing this investigation across multiple jurisdictions. A special thanks to our Santa Maria resident agency of the FBI, Supervisory Senior Resident Agent Mike Rusev, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the California Department of Justice, the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office, Santa Barbara County Child Welfare Services, the Lompoc Unified School District, and Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue. At this time, I would like to invite Special Agent in Charge Patrick Grandy, executive from the FBI Los Angeles Field Office, to speak about the FBI's key role in supporting this investigation.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Grandy. I'm a special agent in charge with the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office. Various FBI field offices in multiple states devoted resources to this investigation, and I can confidently speak on behalf of all FBI employees when I say that our collective hearts are broken as a result of this senseless outcome. The agents in our Santa Maria office, just north of here, worked tirelessly for the past couple of months with the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office, and this has no doubt affected them as well personally. We were all hoping to find Melodee alive, as you undoubtedly were as well. That said, the FBI will continue to provide resources to the County of Santa Barbara as they pursue justice for Melodee, whether that be laboratory services, running down leads in other states, or other investigative assets. As I mentioned, this investigation spanned multiple states. FBI field offices in Denver, Kansas City, Las Vegas, Omaha, Salt Lake City, San Diego, and San Francisco, as well as numerous other local partners provided resources. In particular, as the sheriff mentioned, the Wayne County Sheriff's Department in Utah and their medical examiner for their dedication to Melodee's remains once they were found. Thank you in advance for bearing with me, as I would like to recognize the following agencies that also played a significant role in this investigation. As the sheriff mentioned, it was quite extensive. From the state of Colorado, the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Colorado Department of Transportation, Colorado State Police, Fremont County Sheriff's Office, Grand Junction, Colorado Police Department, Gunnison Police Department, Gunnison Sheriff's Office, Salida Police Department. From the state of Nebraska, the Nebraska State Police. From the state of Utah, the Paiute County Sheriff's Office, St. George Police Department, the Utah State Bureau of Investigation, and the Utah Department of Public Safety. Lastly, I'd like to recognize the media for reporting on this story continuously, and for members of the public who called in tips. We continue to urge anyone with information about Melodee's murder to contact law enforcement. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to the sheriff. Thank you. Let me just conclude by saying these remarks. The circumstances of Melodee Buzzard's murder are heartbreaking. All of us who have been involved in this case have been deeply affected by it. We were hoping against hope that she would be safely found. This outcome is deeply tragic, and on behalf of the entire Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, I want to extend our deepest condolences to those who knew and loved Melodee. I want to take a moment to speak directly to the Meza and Buzzard families, who have endured unimaginable pain throughout this ordeal. Their strength, their patience, and their steadfast hope have been evident from the very beginning. No family should ever have to experience this kind of loss, and our hearts are with them today and will be with them in the difficult days ahead. We stand with them and we remain committed to securing justice for Melodee. I also want to thank the members of the media, both you here in our region and those out of state, for your continued coverage, including the conveyance of Melodee's image and the circumstances of her disappearance all across America. Your involvement played a meaningful role in advancing this investigation. To the members of our community who followed this case closely, thank you for your engagement, for your support, and for your willingness to come forward with information. The loss of a child is among the most profound tragedies any community can endure, and that loss is exacerbated when it is at the hand of someone else, and particularly at the hand of the one who should have loved them the most. Today, we stand together in grief, but also with resolve. Melodee deserved a far better life than she had. We will honor her memory by ensuring that every step of this process is handled with care, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to justice. Our investigation does not end here. We will continue working closely with prosecutors and ensure that the judicial process moves forward with integrity. May God bless the innocent soul of Melodee Buzzard, who we will never, ever forget. Thank you, and I'll now turn it back over to our PIO, Rock Kelsey.
We have allotted some time if anybody has any follow-up questions. Again, reinforcing the fact that we do have an ongoing investigation, and while we're trying to balance transparency with seeking justice for Melodee, so we do have an opportunity to take just a few questions. Yes, Crystal.
Yeah, Raquel, I'm just curious to know, do we believe at this moment that Ashlee acted alone? Or is there any potential leads that other suspects may be involved?
So the question is, do we believe that Ashlee acted alone in this homicide? I will turn it over to Lieutenant Gottschall. Please step to the podium.
Thank you for your question. Our investigation thus far has revealed that at this time, we don't believe that anyone else was involved.
Right here, yes.
Raquel, the sheriff mentioned the retrieval of cartridges
Yes.
and live rounds. Is the murder weapon in evidence?
So the question is about the location of the murder weapon, if we have that in our evidence or in our possession at this time. I'll turn that over to Sheriff Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, the short answer is no. We do not have the murder weapon yet, but we continue to seek it.
I'll come back to you for your follow-up question in just a moment. Go ahead, yes.
Will this case be tried in Santa Barbara County or elsewhere?
Okay, so the question is where this trial will take place. I believe Sheriff Brown will have a response for that.
Yes, the plan is that this trial will take place here, since the intent was believed to have been formed here in our county prior to going on this road trip and committing the actual crime.
So we're going to have room for just a couple more questions. I'll volley back here. Yes.
And for any of you, I know early in the investigation, investigators had been out in those various areas along the road trip. Had that area in Wayne County been searched at all?
So the question is if investigators on their initial routes had been through that area of Wayne County. I believe you're asking if we'd specifically probably been to the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
I'm going to refer to Lieutenant Gottschall for that.
Thank you for your question. We've been following a ton of leads, looking at a lot of different data and information. It is an expansive area of the United States that we were researching, and unfortunately, we didn't have specific location information until recently.
Yes.
When can we expect a mugshot of Ashlee to be released?
I'll have you email me privately on that. We'll proceed with that. We'll take one final question here, and then that'll be a wrap for us. Yes.
Is there a motive that you can share with us at all?
The question is to a motive. If we have one established, I'll have Sheriff Brown cover.
We have not established a motive at this point. We have obviously established that it is what's known as a filicide, the slaying of a child, in this case, a maternal filicide. And there's been a lot of study and a lot of discussion about that and what motivates people to do that. But as far as an actual direct motive, we haven't established that yet.
A very quick follow-up. I know that Ashlee, you had described her as uncooperative throughout the investigation. Can you describe her demeanor now? Has she spoken or confessed in any way? Can you talk about her demeanor now?
Yeah, I can tell you that as of this morning, no, there was no change in her attitude and her demeanor.
So uncooperative.
Uncooperative.
Thank you all very much for coming out and for being patient with us through this process, not just today, but throughout the entirety of the investigation. And again, we really do appreciate the media's coverage of this very important case. And that's going to conclude our press conference for today. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's start with the location because this is significant. First of all, there's no street view of this side road. And I can't help wondering if, given the meticulous planning that she put into all this, that maybe she did choose a location that didn't have a street view. Or maybe the appeal just was because it did seem like an isolated nowhere road. When you look at it, it does look so isolated. I mean, it's a side road in the middle of nowhere. So it's, no houses around, no one to see what you're doing. Of course, what she probably didn't consider is that this is clearly an area that people go to take photos. I mean, I've heard that regular national parks and stuff, you have to queue for ages just to get in there. And you're only allowed a limited amount of time. So I guess for people who are travelling, somewhere like this is probably extremely appealing as a place to go and have a look at, because you don't have the crowds, you don't have the queues. So I guess Ashlee didn't know that. I can't imagine the trauma that those people who found her experienced, though. That would just be the worst thing in the world. Now, can we just acknowledge the sheer brilliance of this perp walk? This has possibly got to be one of the best perp walks in the history of law enforcement. They have parked down the road. Now, they had no need to do that because this woman wasn't going out of her house. Them rocking up in a vehicle wasn't going to actually make her run. They did this, they parked all the way down the road specifically to make sure that people got a good view of this perp walk. Not only that, but they did it at like 7:30 in the morning to make sure that there were enough people around to view it and to appreciate it. I mean, these guys have worked their asses off for the last 2 months, over 2 months. And the woman has been so uncooperative and apparently still is uncooperative. So I would imagine that this just helped them get rid of some of that tension, get rid of some of that frustration. It must have felt so good for them to be able to do this and to make sure that the whole world got to see this extended perp walk. I think the words that really stick with me are the fact that it was calculated, deliberate and ruthless act. Because that is the truth of it. How can someone who carried a child for 9 months go to such calculated lengths and such callous, cruel, cold lengths to take away the life of their child? This goes beyond just a simple mental health issue. This is someone who is a psychopath. Now, I just want to say, I found it a little bit amusing when he said that they had been continuously tracking Ashlee's movements, because as far as we know, she barely left the house. We do know that she had that ankle tracker on after that issue with the guy where she allegedly refused to let him leave the house, and then that all fell through. But turns out that doesn't matter because they've got her now on this. But they are super confident that they've got the right person, and they're saying that there is no one, as far as they can tell, there is no one else involved. They're saying they have a mountain of digital and forensic evidence. Now, in terms of digital evidence, there is no way someone could plan a trip like this and not leave some sort of digital trail. Now, I strongly suspect that she probably had a burner phone for the entire trip. So, probably difficult to trace that. I would imagine that was turfed. But the thing is, this woman has pitted herself against the FBI. So the sort of resources that they have for investigating a case like this, if they can track that burner phone, they will. And given that they know her movements, where she was at particular times, then they can probably geofence those areas for those particular times and pinpoint the phone. As for the vehicle, being a newer vehicle, there should be a whole trove of digital evidence there, provided it wasn't overwritten. Because, of course, the problem is, it was a rental vehicle. It was returned on the 10th, I believe, of October. They didn't get it for another fortnight. So depending on how many miles that vehicle did, it is possible that all the data that was recorded was overwritten, which would really suck because you would have GPS data and all that stuff. He spoke about deliberate efforts to prevent them from locating Melodee. And we already know about a lot of that. Her basically doing this extended route. I mean, who thinks of driving to the other side of the country and then halfway back before doing this to their own child? That is so calculating. And that was a deliberate act to make it harder for them to pinpoint Melodee. You had both her and Melodee wearing wigs. You had her changing the vehicle plates. Now, clearly, now that we know that this is all her doing, I would imagine that hopefully they can actually track those plates in terms of the purchase. And that will be another link to her. But on top of that, you have her reversing into gas stations to try and evade surveillance cameras. To me, this is the sort of evil that is incomprehensible. How can someone come up with a plan like this? You would have to be a complete utter psychopath to plan something to this extreme. And I can't help wondering what those last couple of days were like for poor little Melodee. This is a 9-year-old girl who did nothing wrong. She just happened to be born into the wrong family. She just happened to have lost her father when she was a baby. And this cold woman does this. Now, you've probably got questions about the cartridge cases, because if you followed other cases, then you know that when a bullet has been cycled through a firearm, that you do get unique tool marks on it that will connect it to a firearm. But what they've said here is that there was one expended cartridge case, but in the car there was a live round, meaning that hadn't been through that firearm at all. And then there was another spent one at the house. Now, the way that they would have matched them all, first of all, yeah, the ones found at the crime scene and the one found at the house, they would have been able to match that to the same weapon because there would be unique tool marks on both those cartridge cases showing that they had been fired from the same or cycled through the same weapon. It's like a fingerprint. You are very unlikely to find two cartridge cases with matching marks, tool marks, that have not been through the same weapon. But as for the unused round found in the vehicle, how can they say, well, that is connected to the two used ones that were found? Because basically with those ones, there's going to be tool marks that are the same, showing that they are from the same factory and manufactured at roughly the same time. Because just like when you put a cartridge through a firearm, when it is being manufactured, you are also going to get these microscopic marks from the machinery that it's been manufactured on. Every single piece of machinery is going to be different because it's going to have different levels of wear and tear, for starters, and of course it's been manufactured itself. So then, you have marks from the manufacture of that machinery, plus the wear and tear, meaning that, first of all, yes, you can match it all and say this all came out of the same manufacturing machinery. But at the same time, because of wear and tear, they can say, okay, this not only came out of the same machinery, but it was produced at roughly the same time because the tool marks are near on identical, meaning that it was the same machine with the same level of wear and tear. Now, the database that he referred to is a national ballistics database. So it's the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, which is a database, and that is where they record details of ballistics so that they can match them to firearms, match them to other ballistics that are found that are identical or near on identical, which then allows, of course, for them to match crimes, etc. And see, here's the thing. People probably think that, well, if I dispose of the remains several states away, they're not going to match them to this missing person. But the thing is, everything is centralised in terms of ballistics, in terms of firearms, in terms of missing persons. So as soon as the people from Wayne County put all the details in of the remains that were discovered, then there would have been enough matches for it to flag up with them to say, hey, we've got a missing child from California and this matches the missing child. So it only took them 2 days to connect the remains that were found to Melodee. But Ashlee actually did law enforcement a favour, because the moment she crossed state lines, this case became something that FBI could become involved with. And once you involve FBI, you have every tool available. And it sounds like they had multiple FBI officers helping with this case. So not only are we talking about technology that regular people wouldn't even know about, particularly in terms of tracking, but it also means access to the best forensic laboratories, meaning that the DNA match, they probably had pedal to the metal with that. Probably went straight to the best lab and was put through as quickly as possible. Now, in terms of the weapon, it could potentially be like searching for a needle in a haystack, given the distance that she travelled. Like I said, let's hope that the information on the computer on that rental car was not overwritten, because from that they would have records of distance travelled between each key cycle. they would have GPS locations. They would have records of when the car accelerated or decelerated, which is significant because let's say that she just ditched it while she was driving, wound the window down and ditched it out the window. You could guarantee that she would have slowed down. Not only that, the computer would record the window winding down because it's all electronic these days. If it hasn't been overwritten, they can get GPS coordinates from the vehicle. But it could be a major Hail Mary if they find that weapon. But the thing is, it sounds like they don't need it. She was sloppy. She left cartridges at the scene and had matching cartridges in her house. That is enough. And you can bet they are doing their best to piece her trip together minute by minute so that they will also have that as evidence, the fact that she was in that area. I mean, they have that last sighting very close to where Melodee was found. That's damning in itself. So there's certainly going to be enough evidence without them finding that weapon. That would just be the cream on the cake, though, if they found it. So he mentioned that they didn't have that specific location data and that it was, a couple of civilians who found her. But, like I said, if they have access to the records from that vehicle still, then they will be able to match that up. They will be able to use that and say, hey, the vehicle shows that she was in this location. So they'll be able to do it retrospectively. Also, like I said, if she used a burner phone, then they will have geofenced the areas that they know where she was. And, chances are there's only going to be one phone that shows up in all those areas. And once they've got that, they can track it. Again, vehicle forensics, if it hadn't already been overwritten, then the computer in the vehicle would also say that this phone was connected to this vehicle. And they would know from the time frame that's the phone that she was using. Because you may think that because your vehicle is asking you if you want to connect via Bluetooth, that basically you have some control. But essentially, anything within range of the Bluetooth of that vehicle is going to be recorded. And if they can access the device records through that vehicle, they're going to be able to see her browser history, her phone call history, GPS history on that phone, all those things. Okay, so it may have come as a surprise to some people that they have said we are going to try this in California as opposed to Utah, because people probably expect that, well, the crime occurred in Utah. But according to federal law, when a crime is committed in separate states, then the option exists for a choice in terms of where it's going to be tried. It could be where the crime has been planned, where most of the crime has occurred, or in this case, where the ending occurred. But what they're saying is because she planned it all there in California, that gives them the option of trying it in California. Sounds like they want this case. They want to see justice occur, and they want to be part of that process. Not only that, but the bulk of the files will exist in California, because obviously the sheriff's office there was the lead agency. Now, initially I was a little bit disappointed because I would have liked to have seen her extradited to Utah, simply because they are tougher in terms of the D penalty. However, it occurred to me that she's going to go through way, way worse. So, comparing Cali and Utah, California has not performed a DP since it was reintroduced in 1976. And of course, as you probably know, on a government level in Cali, they are doing their best to be rid of the DP. Utah, on the other hand, is still administering it. So there was one in 2024. But the thing is, the moment that woman was arrested, you can bet that there would have been women in all the prisons around considering starting to make their own shiv with Ashlee's name on it. She will have to be in isolation for the rest of her life, because otherwise there's going to be plenty of mama bears out there who are going to give her their own sort of justice. But even that's not going to guarantee her safety, because you are going to have prison wardens who are also mama bears themselves and who are going to be happy to look the other way. No matter what protocols they put in place, no matter how tough they seem to be, there is always a way. If you look at Paul Flores, now this guy is in California. He was convicted in 2022, I believe, 2022 or 2023, over the disappearance of Kristen Smart in 1996, I believe it was. So very, very long time ago, and they finally convicted him. That guy has copped so much violence in a California jail since he was convicted. Not just because of what he did to Kristen, but because he has a lifetime history of putting things in women's drinks at bars, and you know the rest. I feel so sad about what has happened to this beautiful child, and I just cannot comprehend how a mother can do that. Especially not the way it was done. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I will, of course, continue to keep you updated with any significant things that come up with Melodee's case. And you can bet that when this goes to trial, I am definitely going to be covering it. So I'm going to finish there. Thank you for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit that like button. Please help me get this video out there into the algorithm. Let's get Melodee's story told. And of course, please leave a comment below. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.